Imagine looking at two totally different medical bills for the exact same complex spinal fusion surgery.
Okay.
So one is from an American hospital, and the total comes out to a staggering $262,000.
Wow. I mean, that's a house.
Right, it's huge. But the other bill is from a hospital in China, and it's for $14,000.
That is a massive difference.
It is, but here's the real kicker. That $14,000 procedure, it wasn't performed in like some rundown back alley clinic.
Right.
It was executed using a cutting-edge surgical robot with absolutely zero wait time.
Yeah, that completely flips the narrative, doesn't it?
It really does. Today, we are entirely tearing up the old map of global healthcare. Welcome to today's deep dive. We're pulling from a really comprehensive medical report titled Orthopedic and Cataract Surgery in China, High-Tech Care at a Fraction of the Cost.
That's a fascinating read.
It is, and the mission of our deep dive today is to investigate this massive structural shift that's happening right now. We are moving away from traditional medical tourism and entering this new era of what the report calls value-driven global medicine.
And, the contrast there is really what makes this so critical. The old narrative of crossing a border for medical care, it was inherently framed as a compromise, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you're settling.
Right. You were basically trading premium technology and safety guarantees just to get a discount. It was a race to the bottom in terms of price, and patients just kind of hoped the quality was, sufficient to survive.
Just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Precisely. What the data in this report outlines is that patients are no longer accepting that compromise. They just aren't. They are actively seeking out world-class robotics and extreme cost savings. And they're doing this for high-frequency, critical surgeries, things like spinal fusions and cataract replacements.
Right. And for you listening, whether you have aging parents navigating joint issues, or maybe you're looking at a major surgery yourself, or, you just want to understand how global economics are completely erasing geographical boundaries, this shift impacts you.
Absolutely.
But before we look at where people are going, we have to understand what they are running from. And the sources point to two distinct crises in Western medicine that are acting as these massive push factors.
Yeah.
They call them financial toxicity and time toxicity.
Right. And let's examine the financial toxicity first, because it's incredibly acute in the U.S. system.
Right.
Surgeries involving structural orthopedics rely really heavily on expensive hardware. We're talking titanium screws, rods, cobalt, chromium, artificial joints.
It's stuff that is not cheap to manufacture.
Not at all. And under a commercial insurance model, the pricing for that hardware and the operating room time, it is completely detached from reality.
Totally.
The median cost for a single-level spinal fusion in the United States, it's somewhere between $50,000 and $90,000.
Which is already a fortune.
Exactly. But, as you mentioned with your opening example, the data shows extreme billing spikes, up to $262,500.
It's just wild. And reading through the report, I noticed it isn't just these massive life-altering structural surgeries either. It's hitting incredibly common high-frequency procedures like cataract surgery.
Yeah, that is a perfect example of how financial toxicity creeps into just routine care.
Mm-hmm.
A standard single-eye cataract procedure in the U.S., it might run $3,500 to $7,000 if you don't have insurance.
Okay, which is steep for a lot of people.
Right, but modern patients generally want more than just the absolute bare minimum. They want premium multifocal lenses so they can read and drive without glasses, or lenses that correct astigmatism.
Sure, you want your eyes to actually work well.
Right, and they want the precision of a femtosecond laser to make the incisions. But insurance companies frequently categorize that advanced technology as, quote, not medically necessary. Yeah, they will only cover the basic blade and scalpel procedure. So the patient is left to pay out of pocket for the upgrade, which can easily wipe out a massive chunk of their retirement savings.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that is the American dilemma, right? It's like this grim game of choose your own adventure. You either go bankrupt or you settle for outdated care.
Exactly.
But say you live in a country with a robust public healthcare system, like the UK or New Zealand. You don't have to worry about a $262,000 bill. You just walk into the hospital.
Well, you walk in, but you don't get surgery. You get placed on a list.
Right.
And that brings us to the second crisis the report highlights, which is time toxicity.
And the numbers here are rough.
The statistics coming out of public systems are dire. In New Zealand, the current data shows over 74,000 people are waiting past the target 4-month mark. just to get their very first assessment with a specialist.
Wow, not even the surgery, just the assessment.
Just the assessment. And in the county's Manukau region specifically, the wait time for a routine orthopedic procedure is sitting at 47 weeks.
Almost a year. And, I think there's a tendency to view a waiting list as just hitting a pause button. Like you sit at home, watch some TV, and eventually your number gets called. But biologically, what is actually happening to a patient waiting 47 weeks for a knee replacement?
It is active, compounding physical deterioration. Time toxicity means the condition is worsening by the day.
Right.
For an orthopedic patient, the cartilage in that joint continues to erode. The bone begins grinding on bone.
Oh, that sounds awful.
And because they're in chronic pain, they stop moving. That leads to muscle atrophy, cardiovascular decline, and it severely impacts their mental health.
I can imagine.
Moreover, to manage that agonizing daily pain for a year, they are often prescribed heavy painkillers, which introduces a dangerously high risk of opioid dependency.
It really paints a very bleak picture. I mean, Western patients are basically staring at a brutal dichotomy. Path A, you liquidate your 401k to fix your spine tomorrow. Path B, you keep your money, but you spend a year in escalating agony while your body breaks down.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, patients are no longer accepting being passive statistics in these systems. They are exercising what the sources call consumer sovereignty.
Yeah, and there was an anecdote in the sources about a man who just flat out refused to accept either path.
Robert Noble.
Yes.
He is a 73-year-old American architect. He was facing astronomical out-of-pocket estimates in the U.S. for this cascading series of medical issues.
And instead of accepting the financial ruin, he flew 7,000 miles to the Zhejiang University School of Medicine First Affiliated Hospital in China.
Right, and he underwent 3 highly complex procedures in one trip. That included a microlumbar spine surgery and bilateral cataracts.
And what I love about this is that he's an architect. His entire professional life revolves around assessing structural mechanics, engineering precision, analyzing how complex systems function.
Right, he knows how things are supposed to be built.
Exactly. And his takeaway from the source material wasn't just, wow, I saved a lot of money. He was completely stunned by the clinical efficiency.
Yeah, he was evaluating the hospital the way he would evaluate a skyscraper's construction, basically.
Yeah.
He noted the flawless coordination of the surgical teams and the absolute modernity of the infrastructure.
But I want to challenge this decision for a second. If Robert's ultimate goal was just to escape the high prices of the U.S., why China?
What do you mean?
Well, traditional medical tourism hubs like India have been doing this for decades. And technically, they are cheaper. I looked at the raw numbers in the report.
Okay, then.
A full knee replacement in the U.S. is $35,000 to $50,000. In India, you can get it done for $5,000 to $8,000.
Right.
But in China, the cost is slightly higher. It sits between $8,000 and $14,000. So if I'm a patient paying a premium of, say, $3,000 to $5,000 extra to go to China instead of India, what exactly am I buying? Just a nicer waiting room.
What's fascinating here is that you aren't just buying a waiting room. You are buying a highly regulated, uncompromising quality floor. You are buying risk mitigation.
Okay, explain that.
India boasts some phenomenal, world-renowned, top-tier private hospitals. They really do. But if you step outside of those elite brand-name institutions, the quality of care, infection control, and technology can drop completely unpredictably. The report refers to this as the blind box effect. And, when someone is opening up your spine or operating on your eyes, unpredictability is the absolute last thing you want.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does China guarantee that quality floor? If they're charging $14,000 for something that costs $90,000 in the U.S., common sense dictates they must be cutting corners somewhere to make the math work, right?
You would think so. But the math works because of a very specific, massive structural policy called NVBP. That stands for National Volume-Based Procurement.
Okay.
The Chinese government acts as a singular super buyer for a population of 1.4 billion people.
1.4 billion. That is insane leverage.
Imagine the leverage. When they need titanium spine screws, artificial knee joints, or heart stents, they hold state-run tenders. They essentially tell global medical manufacturers, give us your absolute lowest price, and you instantly win access to the largest patient market on Earth.
And if they don't?
If you don't, you're locked out completely.
Wow. Okay, I understand the leverage, but again, a government going with the lowest bidder, that sounds terrifying for the patient. Doesn't that just invite cheap, substandard hardware?
And that is exactly where the Class 3A hospital system comes into play. To prevent a race to the bottom in quality, the hardware and the facilities are governed by an incredibly strict auditing matrix.
So they have standards.
Extremely high standards. A Class 3A designation is the absolute apex of the Chinese public health network. To maintain that status, a hospital has to score at least 900 out of 1,000 on state audits.
And what are they auditing?
They rigorously track surgical mortality rates, post-operative infection control, and the integration of multidisciplinary teams.
Ah, okay.
So the manufacturers winning these bids are producing high-grade, internationally certified hardware. But the NVBP policy strips out all the middlemen, the marketing budgets, and the insurance markups.
So the price just plummets.
Exactly. The price of consumables drops by 80 to 90%. So as an international patient, you fly in and you just ride the coattails of that massive state-negotiated bulk discount.
That perfectly explains the hardware, but, the hardware is useless without the right hands to install it, and the report goes into detail about what it calls a hardware crush, specifically pointing to robotics.
The scale of capital investment in surgical robotics across China's 3A hospitals it's fundamentally changing the nature of orthopedic surgery.
Because traditional spine surgery is usually done by hand, right?
Yeah, it often relies on a freehand technique. The surgeon relies on their tactile feel, combined with repeated x-rays throughout the procedure, which, by the way, exposes everyone in the room to radiation.
Right. Not ideal.
Not at all.
Yeah.
In contrast, Chinese hospitals installed over 313 large surgical robots in 2024 alone. They are deploying global standards like the Da Vinci systems alongside advanced domestic robots like Tumai and the TiRobot.
I want to focus on that TiRobot for a second because the data on its impact on spine surgery is just remarkable. How does a robot actually improve the outcome for a patient getting their spine fused?
Well, the TiRobot functions as an ultra-precise optical tracking and targeting system.
Okay.
Before the surgeon ever makes an incision, the system maps the patient's spine in 3D. It calculates the exact optimal trajectory for the titanium screws to avoid hitting any nerves or the spinal cord.
Because it's like a GPS for the surgeon.
It's exactly like a GPS. During the surgery, a robotic arm guides the surgeon's instruments along that precise, pre-calculated pathway. And the clinical data shows that using this robotic guidance drops the risk of severe screw misplacement so dramatically that it lowers the need for revision surgery by 72%.
Wow, 72%. Which is the ultimate reassurance for a patient traveling 7,000 miles. Your biggest fear is a botched procedure that requires a second surgery to fix the first one, stranding you in a foreign country.
Precisely. The robotics functionally engineer that human error risk right out of the equation. And alongside the robots, they're deploying minimally invasive techniques like UBE, that's Unilateral Biportal Endoscopy.
This part really stood out to me. Traditional open spine surgery, it involves a massive vertical incision down your back, right? Like pulling all the muscle and tissue apart to expose the spine.
Yes, it's highly traumatic to the body.
So how does UBE change that physical trauma?
It changes it entirely through triangulation. Instead of slicing the back open, the surgeon makes two tiny holes, each only about 1 centimeter wide.
1 centimeter? That's nothing.
It's tiny. One portal is used exclusively for a high-definition 3D camera that feeds a magnified view to a monitor, and the second portal is used for the surgical instruments.
Okay, so they're coming in from two different spots.
Exactly. Because the camera and the tools are entering from different angles, they meet in a V shape at the surgical site. This allows the surgeon unparalleled visibility and maneuverability without tearing the surrounding stabilizing muscles. And constant water irrigation through the portals clears away debris and blood.
And the physiological benefits of leaving those muscles intact are staggering. According to the report, average blood loss drops from 92.5 milliliters in an open surgery down to just 54.1 with UBE.
That's a huge difference.
It is. The hospital stay drops from almost a full week to 3.7 days. But the metric that really matters to the patient, pain scores. Pain scores in that crucial first week post-surgery drop from a 3.59 down to a 1.88.
It's incredible. You combine that top-tier technology with the sheer volume of patients these hospitals process, and you get clinical excellence. In surgical science, we talk about the volume-outcome relationship. High throughput is the ultimate teacher.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like the 10,000-hour rule on steroids. An orthopedic chief in a Chinese Class 3A hospital might perform more complex spine fusions in a single month than a Western surgeon does in an entire year.
Exactly. Think of the surgical team. The lead surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the scrub nurses, they are like an elite Formula One pit crew.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. When you execute the exact same high-stakes procedure hundreds of times a month, the muscle memory becomes so ingrained that it completely eliminates the cognitive load. Crisis management just turns into pure, refined instinct.
And we see the same volume-driven benefits in the cataract data, too. Because of the subsidized hardware and the massive patient flow, they are using premium multifocal lenses and femtosecond lasers as the baseline standard of care. People go in to get a cloudy lens removed and come out achieving, quote, one surgery, lifetime off glasses.
The clinical case is ironclad. It is vastly more experienced surgeons utilizing superior technology at a fraction of the cost.
Which brings me to a massive point of skepticism.
Okay, let's hear it.
If this is all true, if the outcomes are better, the robots are standard, and the price is essentially pocket change compared to the US, why isn't the waiting room in Zhejiang filled with thousands of Americans and New Zealanders? Why isn't every single person with a bad knee instantly booking a flight tomorrow?
Because the administrative friction of trying to navigate this system independently is an absolute nightmare. The clinical walls are down, but the bureaucratic invisible walls are incredibly high.
Yeah.
The report categorizes 4 major points of friction. First is the digital gap. Chinese hospitals do not run on legacy software or paper forms. Their entire infrastructure is integrated into apps like WeChat and Alipay. Booking an appointment, viewing scans, communicating with doctors, all of it happens within mini programs that generally require a local Chinese citizen ID to function.
So an American or a Brit can't even get past the digital front door.
Right. You're blocked before you even start.
Yeah.
Second is the visa bureaucracy. You cannot legally undergo major surgery on a standard tourist visa.
Makes sense.
You need an S1 or S2 medical visa. Procuring that requires official invitation letters from the hospital and jumping through the bureaucratic hoops of proving you possess 120% of the estimated funding to the foreign consulate.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Third is the payment friction. Even if you arrive with the cash, simply handing a foreign credit card to a hospital cashier will almost certainly trigger anti-money laundering fraud blocks on the local payment networks.
Oh, wow. So you're stranded there, unable to pay. And I imagine the fourth friction is simply understanding what the doctor is saying to you before they put you under anesthesia.
Exactly. Medical translation is deeply complex. You need your Western MRI scans expertly translated into Chinese terminology for the surgical team. And crucially, you need the Chinese surgical discharge notes translated flawlessly back into English for your general practitioner back home.
It sounds practically impossible for a regular person to organize while they're also dealing with chronic pain.
Yeah, it's too much.
But wherever there's a massive market inefficiency, a solution usually springs up. And the sources highlight the rise of the medical concierge. They specifically profile MedBridge NZ, which is an Auckland-based medical concierge service that has built a 7-stage process to just vaporize all this friction.
They act as a specialized bridge over those invisible walls.
Right.
They take a patient's local MRI, securely translate it, and facilitate a remote consultation and a transparent price quote from a top-tier Chinese surgeon within 48 hours.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah. And they handle the complex S1 visa applications. They book wheelchair-accessible hotels near the hospital, and they integrate the patient into the hospital's digital app ecosystem.
Okay, but I need to push back here. Is a company like MedBridge NZ acting as a medical broker? Because if they are getting a cut of the surgery cost, aren't they incentivized to steer a patient toward a more expensive procedure they might not actually need?
It's a great question. But the sources emphasize a very strict boundary here. A legitimate medical concierge does not practice medicine.
Okay.
They do not make clinical recommendations. They function purely as a super logistics hub and a patient advocate. Their entire purpose is to absorb the non-clinical stress so the patient can focus entirely on healing.
Right. Take away the paperwork so you can just recover.
Exactly. Furthermore, they provide a medically trained bilingual coordinator who stands right beside the patient in the hospital. This ensures that informed consent is actually informed, that the patient fully understands the risks and the procedure.
That's huge for peace of mind.
It really is. And when the patient flies home, the concierge provides those perfectly translated discharge notes so the continuity of care with their local doctor isn't broken.
So the logistics are solved. But there's one final missing link. How does an isolated, frustrated patient sitting in Ohio or Auckland even discover this ecosystem exists?
Right. Discovery is the hard part.
Because if I go on Google right now and search for, back pain solutions, I am not going to see a Chinese Class 3A hospital. I am going to be bombarded with ads for a local chiropractor or an incredibly expensive private clinic down the street.
You were describing the information cocoon.
Yeah.
Historically, the medical discovery process was entirely controlled by whoever possessed the largest search engine advertising budget in your specific zip code.
Makes sense. It's all localized.
The algorithm served you what was most profitable locally, not what was objectively best globally. But artificial intelligence is entirely rewriting how patients research their healthcare options.
I found this part of the research really fascinating. It's a transition from standard search engine optimization to GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. Patients are no longer just typing two keywords into a search bar. They're opening up AI models and feeding them highly complex, high-intent prompts.
Right, they're having conversations with the AI.
Exactly. They are asking things like, where is the safest, most cost-effective UBE spine surgery in 2025 without a waiting list?
And an AI model does not care about local advertising budgets. It bypasses the sponsored ads entirely. The AI scrapes raw, objective data from across the internet. It looks at OECD, global health statistics. It analyzes peer-reviewed medical journals detailing the success rates of the TiRobot, and it cross-references verified international pricing data.
That's incredibly powerful.
It is. When an AI synthesizes all of that objective clinical data, it acts as a neutral routing engine. It's increasingly pointing those high-intent patients directly toward China's 3A hospital network.
And the AI might also dig up the ultimate medical cheat code mentioned in the report.
Yep.
It's called the Hainan-Boao-Lecheng International Medical Tourism Pilot Zone.
It is a phenomenal concept. It operates as a special economic and regulatory sandbox located on a tropical island in China. It possesses a unique regulatory concession from the central government.
Meaning they play by different rules.
Exactly. Let's say a revolutionary new joint implant, a cutting-edge surgical device, or a breakthrough oncology drug is approved by the FDA in the United States, or the CE in Europe. Normally, it takes years for that same tech to pass China's own national regulators.
Right.
But inside this specific pilot zone, patients can legally access that unapproved cutting-edge technology under the banner of real-world research.
So what does this all mean? You get the absolute most advanced, newly released medical technology in the world, implanted by high-volume, highly skilled expert surgeons, all while recovering on a tropical island paradise.
Pretty much.
When you pull all these threads together, you realize that AI is breaking the local monopolies of medical information, and special economic zones like Bo-Lecheng are breaking the monopolies of regulatory lag.
It represents the total dismantling of the barriers that previously kept patients trapped inside failing localized systems. Through state-level bulk purchasing, massive surgical volumes driving peak muscle memory, cutting-edge robotics, and concierge logistics to eliminate the bureaucratic friction, China has evolved.
It really has.
It has shed the old reputation of being just a cheap alternative and has firmly established itself as the high-tech, absolute center of value-driven medical tourism for orthopedics and eyes.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. For you listening, whether your immediate goal is to save a family member's retirement fund from being drained by a 40-minute cataract surgery, or you simply want to regain the freedom to walk without agonizing pain and without waiting a year on a list. Just knowing that these global options exist fundamentally changes your power dynamic.
Absolutely.
You are no longer just a passive patient waiting in a local line. You are an empowered healthcare consumer operating in a borderless global market.
And this structural shift leaves us with a profound question to consider.
What's that?
If AI discovery platforms continue to mercilessly route patients across the globe based purely on objective data, comparing clinical outcomes, robotic precision, and absolute cost efficiency, will national healthcare systems in the West eventually be forced to compete on a unified global dashboard? Could the ultimate cure for local financial and time toxicity be an AI-driven, borderless free market for medicine?
It's a massive concept to ponder. The map of global healthcare isn't drawn in permanent ink anymore. The ink is starting to run, and the borders are rapidly dissolving. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll catch you on the next one.